Some debts can't be marked in ledgers or paid with a sack of gold. Out on the frontier, a man sometimes repays what he owes with his life. When Abel Harkin spotted that thin trail of blood slicing across the alkali flats that morning, he came to a crossroads most men never see. He could ride on like any sensible cowboy would, or follow the trail straight into whatever hell waited at the end. He chose wrong. 2 Apache women lay ahead, one crumpled in the sand, bleeding out under a boiling sun, and the other towering over her with eyes sharp enough to cut a man in half. The healthy one watched Abel like she was measuring where to bury him. Abel offered water and food anyway. He thought he was saving a life. But no man wakes up surrounded at dawn by 700 Apache warriors because he did something noble. They come only when a line older than memory has been crossed. And what Abel didn't know about tribal law would either end his life or carve him into someone he never imagined he could be. The answer was already riding toward his ranch, long before the wounded sister sipped from his canteen. The desert had been dead quiet for 3 straight days before Abel stumbled onto them. Too quiet, the kind that hangs in the air right before something breaks wide open. He'd been checking the northern fence line, the stretch that edged land no white man truly owned, no matter what his papers claimed. Out here, the earth kept its own rules, and the folks who lived by them never needed ink to justify a claim. He saw the blood first, dark flecks on pale stone, then a long smear dragging between sun-baked rocks. It told a story Abel understood immediately, though he wished he didn't. Someone was hurt bad, someone was running, someone else was hunting. His horse shied when the wind shifted, catching a scent only animals could read. Abel steadied the reins and pushed on, following the trail into a maze of rust-colored boulders older than time. Heat climbed with the sun until it felt like he was breathing through canvas soaked in fire. Sweat crawled beneath his shirt, turning the cotton into a second skin. That's when he saw the first woman. She was slumped against a stone face just wide enough to cast a sliver of shade. Fever sweat glazed her skin, and a crimson wound leaked through buckskin that had once been tan. Her dark hair clung to her face, young features twisted with pain. She couldn't have seen more than 20 summers, but it was the second woman who froze Abel in his saddle. She planted herself between him and the wounded girl, unmoving as a cliff. Even at 30 feet, Abel knew she wasn't ordinary. Tall, taller than most men he'd ever known, with shoulders shaped by strength and a bearing that didn't ask for respect so much as command it outright. Her buckskin held markings he'd never seen before, signs of rank, warning, or honor. He couldn't tell which. The knife in her hand flashed like a promise. "Turn back," she called, voice accented but clear as a church bell. "This is not your concern." Abel kept his hands high and empty. "The bleeding won't stop on its own." "I said turn back." The wounded girl made a sound, half gasp, half swallowed scream. Her eyes rolled white, breath rattling in that thin, shallow way that always comes before shock. "She's dying," Abel said softly. "That is not your concern." Her grip whitened around the knife. Abel glanced at the girl bleeding into the dirt, then back at the fierce woman standing guard. Beneath the threat in her stare, he recognized something he'd carried once himself. Terror wrapped in fury. The look of someone watching a person they love slip away while they can do nothing but watch. He slid off his horse slowly, careful not to twitch. His canteen hung from the saddle horn beside a leather pouch of dried meat and hard bread. Supplies for a long ride alone. "I'm reaching for my canteen," Abel warned. "Just water." "Come closer," she said, cold as steel, "and I'll open your throat. Then you'll have 2 bodies instead of 1. Her words hung heavy in the scorching air. The wounded girl whimpered again, blood dribbling from the corner of her mouth. Abel stepped forward anyway. Her knife twitched, but she didn't strike. Another step, then another. Close enough now to see the faint flutter of the wounded girl's pulse, the fear slicking the tall woman's face. Fear not of him, but of losing the person at her feet. "Your name," she demanded, knife raised. "Abel. Abel Harkin." "Why help us?" "Because she's dying," Abel replied. "And because I've stood where you're standing." He held out the canteen. For 3 long heartbeats, nothing moved. Then her free hand shot out, fast as a hawk diving, snatching the canteen while keeping the blade cutting the space between them. She knelt, giving the injured girl water. The girl drank weakly, eyes glassy with fever. She whispered something in Apache, and the tall woman answered in the same tongue, her voice softening for the first time. Abel reached for food and cloth. "Why?" she snapped. "Does it matter?" "Everything matters." Her stare carried weight, not curiosity, warning. The wounded girl sagged sideways, and panic broke through her sister's hard mask. The knife dipped. "She needs real help," Abel said, "not just water. My ranch is 3 miles west. I've got clean bandages, whiskey, supplies. We cannot go with you." "Then she'll die here, within the hour." The tall woman's eyes dropped to her sister's pallid face. Something in her shifted. The knife trembled. "If you betray us," she hissed, "I will spend days making you regret it." "Understood. If you speak of this to anyone—" She studied his face for what felt like a lifetime before sliding the knife back into her belt. "Her name is Nita," she said. "I am Tala. Can you carry her?" Tala bent to lift her sister. Nita cried out as blood soaked fresh through her side. Abel mounted up and reached down. "She'll ride steadier with me." Tala lifted Nita with surprising gentleness. Together they settled her in front of Abel. Tala swung up behind them in one fluid, powerful motion. As they rode west, Tala leaned in close, her voice low and tight. "You should have kept riding, Abel Harkin. What you've done cannot be undone. You touched a daughter of the council. The old laws do not forgive, not even when the touch saves a life." The ranch appeared through waves of heat. Weathered boards, a barn missing half its roof, a corral in need of mending. Nothing worth dying for. But with Nita's breath growing shallower against his chest, Abel wondered if he had already traded his life for hers. Tala slid off before the horse stopped and helped lower her sister. Blood smeared Abel's shirt. Inside, sunlight poured through windows Abel had cut with his own hands. "The table," he said, sweeping aside his breakfast. Tala laid Nita down as though she were made of spun glass. Her hands trembled as she brushed hair from her sister's fevered face. Abel grabbed cloth, needle, thread, and the bottle of whiskey he'd been saving. "I need to see the wound." "You will not," Tala snapped. "She dies if I don't." He held her gaze. "You can kill me after." Silence stretched until finally Tala stepped aside. The wound was worse than Abel feared. Deep, swollen, angry. Something heavy had torn her open. He poured whiskey over his hands, then over the wound. Nita screamed, and Tala gripped her hand, speaking to her in Apache. Abel stitched fast, hands remembering a life he'd tried to bury, the life where he failed to save someone he loved. His fingers trembled. He forced them steady. "How'd it happen?" Abel asked. "Hunters," Tala spit. "Men who think Apache scalps are trophies. There were 5. One still follows." Abel wrapped the bandage tight. "What does he want?" "Proof of the kill," Tala whispered. "And glory. He believes killing the daughter of our spiritual leader will make him a legend. Abel froze. Daughter of the council leader? Yes, both of us. Tala's voice hardened. Now do you understand what you've done? No, Abel said honestly. You should have left us in the desert, she whispered. You should have forgotten you ever saw us. She turned toward the window, staring out at empty land. Our people have laws older than this territory. No outsider may touch a council daughter, not to harm, not to help, not for any reason. That's insane. That is tradition. She faced him again, eyes haunted. When our father learns what happened, he will come, and he will bring everyone, every warrior who can ride, every oath-keeper under the sun. You saved my sister, she said, voice cracking. But by our law, that is still a violation. Abel looked at Nita's pale face, her shallow breaths. Would you rather I let her die? I would rather, Tala said, voice breaking. You had never found us at all. Because now you'll pay the price for your kindness, and I can't stop what waits outside. The sun had started sinking toward the far rim of the world when Abel Harkin stepped up beside Tala at the window. The land beyond stretched out wide and empty, yet suddenly felt tight enough to choke a man. Somewhere out there, a hunter was following the blood trail straight to his ranch. And far beyond him, a father was mourning daughters he believed lost to the desert. How long? Abel asked. The hunter? Tala replied quietly. He'll reach us by morning. And your people? Tala hesitated. They ride faster than white men believe. When one of ours is threatened, they fly. 2 days, maybe 3. And when they arrive, they'll surround this place. They'll demand judgment. Her hand rested on the window frame. 700 warriors, Abel Harkin, maybe more. That's how many will come for one council daughter. For 2? She shook her head. The horizon won't be wide enough to hold them. Behind them, Nita stirred, mumbling in her restless sleep. Tala rushed to check her bandages with practiced calm, but fear lingered around her eyes. Abel stayed at the window, watching the shadows crawl across land he'd once believed belonged to him. This ranch, built with his hands, defended through storms and long winters, had always been sanctuary. His biggest problem that very morning had been a broken fence post, and the silence that had been his only companion. That silence was about to shatter. And when it did, the world would fill with the thunder of hooves rolling like a storm across the desert floor. The hunter, Abel said softly. You said he wants proof of the kill. What kind of proof? Tala's silence was answer enough. Abel checked his rifle resting against the wall, exactly where he'd left it at sunrise. It was fully loaded, ammunition stacked in the cabinet, dried stores in the cellar, water in the well. Enough to survive a siege. But Apache warriors didn't lay siege. They didn't need to. Get some rest, Abel told Tala. Both of you. I'll keep watch. You think you can protect us from Clyde Barker? Tala's voice trembled between doubt and desperate hope. I think I'm going to try. That counts for something, she said quietly. Whether it counts for enough? Her eyes drifted to her sister. We'll know by morning. Night fell fast, pressing against the windows like a living thing. Abel settled in a chair by the door, rifle across his lap, listening to a silence that no longer felt peaceful. Somewhere out there, Clyde Barker followed blood and hoofprints toward the ranch, and farther out still, 700 Apache riders prepared to ride toward a man who had broken their oldest law. Abel had saved a life today. Tomorrow he'd learn the cost. Morning came wrong, gray and tight, like the world holding its breath. Abel felt it before he opened his eyes. That pressure in the air that comes before lightning or gunfire. He'd fallen asleep in the chair despite swearing he wouldn't. His neck ached as he jerked awake to see Tala standing at the eastern window, knife drawn. "He is here," she whispered. Abel rose silently and moved to the opposite window. The land looked empty, but emptiness was a lie he'd learned too many times. Then he saw movement, a lone rider walking his horse in slow, deliberate circles, studying, gauging. "Clyde Barker," Tala hissed, hatred thick in her voice. "He killed my sister's horse, made her run, tracked her for sport before firing the shot." "He alone?" "Yes. The others disagreed with his cruelty. He killed them too." Abel absorbed that. A man willing to butcher his own partners was a man with no lines left to cross. Barker moved closer, stopping just outside rifle range. He was thin, sunburned, mean, clothes frayed, hat low, cruelty carved into every line of his face. When he called out, his voice cut clean through the morning air. "The Apache women in there. I know you can hear me." A pause. "You killed my friends. That counts for something. Don't you think it's time to settle up?" Abel opened the door just enough to be seen, rifle easy in his hand. "They're not interested in your accounts, Barker." Clyde's eyes narrowed. "Didn't know they had help. You the rancher?" "I'm the man telling you to ride on." "Can't do that. Got business unfinished." "That business doesn't concern you anymore." "Already made my choice," Abel answered. Clyde snorted. "Shame. Thought you had more brains." What happened next hit like a whip crack. Clyde drew first. Fast. Abel dove behind the doorframe as a bullet tore splinters from the wood. He returned fire through the gap, missing by inches but forcing Barker to wheel away. Tala appeared at Abel's shoulder. "He will circle. Try the back. There's no back door. Then the windows. Or he'll wait until we leave." Abel checked on Nita. She'd woken during the shooting, eyes wide with pain. Tala murmured to her in Apache, and Nita whispered back before drifting off again. "She asks if you are hurt," Tala said. "I'm fine. She needs rest." She says, "Thank you for helping, for not running." Tala's voice softened. She has never heard an outsider called someone worth saving. Another shot shattered the western window. Glass rained across the floor as Abel rolled into cover. "How much ammunition do you have?" Tala asked. "Enough for a fight, not enough for a war." "Then we end this quickly." "You have a plan?" "I can move unseen. I can reach him." "He'll kill you before you're close." "You do not know what I can do." Tala's eyes burned. "I am no helpless woman." "I don't doubt it, but he's expecting you to try exactly that." "Then what?" Abel hesitated, thinking through a dozen bad outcomes. "We make him think he's winning, draw him closer. Then we strike together." "You trust me to fight beside you?" "Don't have much choice." Something like respect flickered across her face. They split, Tala at the back window, Abel up front. Silence stretched thick. Let Barker think he had them pinned and scared. Minutes passed. Then Barker called out again. "Running low on choices in there. How about a deal? You give me what I came for, I let you walk away." Abel didn't answer. Barker moved closer, 200 yards now. "One way or another," Clyde shouted. "You'll need water. You'll have to move." 150 yards. Abel steadied his breathing. "Last chance," Barker barked. His horse stepped over a low ridge. "Come out." Tala burst through the window like a storm unleashed. She hit the ground rolling, sprinted across the sand so fast Barker barely registered movement. His revolver swung up, but Abel fired first, The shot slammed into Barker's shoulder, spinning him. Tala reached him as he fell, her knife slicing deep into his other arm. Barker screamed, dropping his weapon. "Stop!" Abel shouted, running toward them. "Don't kill him!" Tala hovered over Barker, knife raised for the final strike. "He would have butchered us," she growled. "I know, but if you kill him here, there'll be questions. People will come." Abel leveled his rifle at Clyde's forehead. "He leaves, bleeding, shamed, alive enough to spread word you're under protection." "Your protection means nothing," Clyde spat. "You're dead men. When the Apache hear you sheltered their daughters, they'll what?" Abel pressed the rifle harder. "Tell me." Clyde's eyes widened. "You don't know," he whispered. "You have no idea what you've done." "Then enlighten me. She's not just a warrior." Clyde nodded toward Tala. "She's next in line for war chief. And the girl—" He laughed, broken and bloody. "Nita is promised to the council as a spiritual vessel, untouched, sacred, and you stitched her up like she was common." Ice slid into Abel's chest. 700 warriors, Clyde croaked. "Maybe more. They'll surround this ranch and they won't leave until you're judged. I'd have made it quick. They won't." Abel stepped back. "Get on your horse," he said. "Ride until you can't see this land. Come back and I'll finish what Tala started." Bleeding, Clyde mounted and cast one last look over his shoulder. "They're already coming," he rasped. "Probably felt it the moment you touched her. Some things can't be undone." He rode off, leaving drops of red in the sand. Some debts always demand payment. Tala and Abel watched until Clyde vanished beyond the horizon. Then Tala murmured, hollow and resigned, "He is right. They will come. And when they arrive, there is nothing I can say to change what must happen." "What must happen?" Abel asked. "You will stand in the center of 700 warriors," Tala said softly. "My father will demand to know why you violated sacred law, and you will have to answer for your crime." "The crime," she whispered, "of saving my sister's life." They spent the rest of the day in taut silence. Abel boarded up the shattered window with planks from the barn. His mind churned through impossible odds. Tala stayed at Nita's side, changing bandages, offering water, whispering comfort in a language Abel couldn't understand. By late afternoon, Nita's fever broke. Color crept back into her face, her eyes focused instead of wandering. When Abel brought fresh water, she spoke softly in English. "You should not have helped us. You should have been selfish." "Tried that once," Abel said quietly. "Didn't take." He set down the water. "Someone I loved was dying. I was too far. By the time I reached her, she was gone. Been carrying that weight ever since. Didn't plan to add more." Nita studied him with eyes far older than her face. "Then you traded one burden for another. My life for yours. Maybe it won't come to that." "It will. No anger, just certainty. My father lives by the old ways. He cannot turn from them. To abandon tradition is to abandon our people." Tala placed a hand on her sister's shoulder. "Rest. Save your strength." But Nita pushed on, voice thin but urgent. "There is something you must know, Abel hearken. Something about why so many will come. Your father is the spiritual leader. I understand," Abel Harkin said. "No, you do not understand." Nita pushed herself upright, despite Tala's hand trying to hold her down. "I am not simply his daughter. I am the chosen vessel, the one meant to carry our sacred teachings, to read the old signs, to guide our people when he is gone." "You're a priest," Abel murmured. "More than that." Nita's voice trembled, not from weakness but from the weight of what she carried. I am the bridge between our people and the ones who walked before us. My body is considered holy ground. No outsider has touched me since I was marked at 7 years old." Her gaze dropped to the bandages wrapped tight around her torso. Until now. The meaning fell over Abel like a burial cloth. "So when I stitched your wound, you committed the greatest violation our law recognizes," Nita finished softly. "Not because you meant harm. The law does not care about intentions. Sacred boundaries cannot be crossed, not for violence, not for mercy." Tala turned away, shoulders locked with guilt. "I tried to stop him, Nita. I held a knife to his throat. And still you let him help." Nita's voice gentled, though her words carried the weight of doom. "Because you knew I would die otherwise. You chose my life over law." "The council will punish us both," Tala whispered. "They must. Anything less. And everything we believe crumbles." Abel pushed to his feet and moved to the window, staring out at a desert that had felt harmless just 1 day before. "How long until they arrive?" "Tomorrow," Tala said. "Maybe the day after." She joined him at the window. "My father will sense something is wrong. When we failed to return, he would have sent scouts. They will find the bodies of Clyde Barker's men, and they will follow the trail here." She nodded toward the horizon. "When they come, they will surround this ranch. Every warrior within 3 days' ride will answer the call. 700 is the minimum required by tradition for a violation this severe." Her reflection in the glass looked haunted. But for 2 daughters, one destined to lead the spirit path and one destined to lead the warriors, they will bring more. They will roll across this land like shadows. Night arrived heavier than before. Abel took the first watch while the sisters rested. He sat in the dark with his rifle across his knees, listening to Nita's steady breaths and Tala's soft movements as she kept vigil. Around midnight, Tala spoke from across the room. "Why do you live alone out here?" "Seemed safer than living with people." "Was it?" Abel thought about that. "It was quiet. That counted for something. But now, I'm wondering if quiet was just another way of saying empty." Tala was silent a long moment. "When they come, you could run. Take your horse. Ride before they arrive. They would not follow you. Their business is with us." "That what you want me to do?" "What I want does not matter. What will happen whether I wish it or not." "Then I'll stay," Abel said, shifting in his chair. "Figure I should see this through." "You will die for us. You understand that?" "Maybe. Or maybe something else happens. Something neither of us can see yet." Tala moved closer, settling in the shadows across from him, her face barely visible. "You are either very brave," she said quietly, "or very foolish." "Been called both," Abel murmured. "Never figured out which one stuck. My sister is right." Tala's voice lowered. "You should have been selfish. Selfish men survive." "Survive isn't the same as live." She studied him in silence. "When my father arrives, he will ask why you did this. What will you tell him?" "The truth. I saw someone dying, and I couldn't walk away." "That will not be enough." "It's all I've got." Dawn morning came like the world holding its breath. Abel stood at the eastern window as gray light crept over sage and stone. The land looked empty, but the emptiness felt borrowed now. Behind him, Nita stirred. "They will arrive soon," she whispered. "My father is a man of patterns. When we did not return, he would have sent scouts at once. They would have found Clyde's dead companions yesterday. They will have followed our trail here." Abel asked, "How long does it take to gather so many warriors?" "They do not need to gather," Nita answered softly. "The council was already in session. Over 500 warriors assembled. My father would send word to every nearby camp. They would ride through the night. Abel stared at the horizon. Still empty, but nothing could hide forever. Then he saw it, a rider cresting the distant ridge. Then another. Then 10 more. "Tala," Abel said quietly. She joined him, breath catching. The ridge filled with riders, then overflowed. They came like a living river flooding the high ground. Hundreds of warriors mounted on horses painted for ceremony, weapons glinting as the rising sun struck them. They moved with a precision that belonged more to myth than to mortal men. 700. Maybe more. Just as Tala had said. Just as fate had promised. And they were coming for Abel Harkin's ranch. They arrived in a silence heavier than any war cry. 700 warriors formed concentric circles around the ranch, each ring perfectly spaced and perfectly still. No threats shouted, no weapons raised. Just the unbroken presence of a people united in purpose. Abel had never felt so small. The ranch he'd built with his own hands now looked like a toy abandoned in the sand. His fences, his walls, none of it meant anything beside the force that had gathered. A single rider approached from the center. Older. Silver hair. A face shaped by sun and years and responsibility. No war paint. No visible weapons. But his authority struck like heat off stone. "My father," Tala whispered. The rider stopped 30 feet from the door. "I am Sani, keeper of the old ways," he announced. "Guardian of the sacred path. I come for my daughters." Abel opened the door slowly, palms empty. "They're safe, both of them." Sani studied him from boots to brow, reading him like scripture. "You are Abel Harkin," he said. "A man who lives alone, a man who troubles no one." A pause. "Until yesterday." "I found them dying," Abel said. You touched the one marked sacred," Sani said. "Placed your hands on flesh no outsider has touched since childhood." There was no anger in his tone, only truth. Tala stepped out beside Abel. Warriors flinched, hands drifting toward weapons, but Sani lifted one hand and they froze. "Father," Tala said. "He saved Nita's life. She would have... I know what would have happened." Sani's voice softened, barely. "I also know what must happen now." Nita stepped into the doorway, pale but standing. A murmur rippled through the ranks, a wave of disbelief and awe. "The law is clear," Sani said. "An outsider who touches a sacred vessel must face judgment. The council will determine whether his touch carried malice or mercy, but either way, there must be a reckoning." "So you brought 700 warriors to judge one man?" Abel asked. Something like a shadow of a smile touched Sani's face. "We bring 700 because the law demands it. When what is sacred is compromised, we show the world our traditions hold value, that our daughters are worth protecting." He gestured to the vast circle. "This is not only judgment, Abel Harkin. It is demonstration. And if I refuse? Then we remain here. The circle will not break. No entry, no escape. Eventually hunger, thirst, or time will bring your answer." His voice stayed gentle. "There is no running from this. Only the choice of how you face it." Abel looked at the faces around him. Young warriors hungry for honor. Older ones tired of violence. Women with unreadable eyes. All waiting. "What happens if I go with you?" "You will speak the truth before the council. The elders will deliberate. Then they will choose whether your crime requires death, or if another path balances the scales." "What other path?" "That is not mine to reveal." Nita stepped forward, voice shaking. "Father, he acted with honor. Without him, I would be bones in the desert. I know. Sani's eyes softened. But honor does not erase violation. He looked at Abel. Will you come of your own will, or must we take you? Abel felt the sun heating his neck. His loaded rifle waited inside. But what good was one rifle against 700 riders? And somewhere deeper than fear, he felt something else. They hadn't come screaming for blood. They had come because their daughters mattered, enough to move an army. That kind of love, bound in tradition though it was, demanded respect. I'll go, Abel said. Tala grabbed his arm. You do not have to. Yes, he said quietly. I do. He looked at her, at Nita, then at Sani. I made a choice yesterday. Time to see the cost. Sani nodded slowly. You show courage. That will matter when judgment comes. 4 warriors stepped forward, not to bind him, but to escort him. The crowd parted, forming a corridor. At the center lay an open space, sand and sun waiting like a stage. The 5 elders stood there. Among them, an ancient woman with fire still burning behind her eyes, Eha. Beside them stood a wooden post driven deep into the earth, ropes hanging from it. Not for hanging, but for binding. Silence closed in as 700 warriors encircled Abel. Nita and Tala were brought opposite him, faces torn between gratitude and grief. Eha stepped forward, her voice carried like wind over canyon rock. We gather, she declared, to judge the violation of sacred law. The elder woman's voice cut through the heat like a blade drawn slow. An outsider laid hands upon the chosen vessel, sacred blood touched by foreign hands. The line that must never be crossed was crossed. She let the silence gather, tight as desert thunder. Abel hearken, speak your truth. Tell us why you committed this offense. Abel stood alone in the center of 700 Apache warriors, the sun pressing heavy on his shoulders, every gaze fixed on him. Sweat carved thin trails through the dust on his face. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, rooted in something deeper than fear. I found them out there in the sand, one bleeding to death, the other fighting like hell to keep her alive with nothing more than grit and a knife. I gave them water, food, shelter, and when that wasn't enough, I stitched the wound that would have taken Nita from this world. The elder woman didn't blink. And you knew she was Apache? I knew she was dying, Abel said. That was all. Did they tell you who she was? What she represented? Not until afterward. And by then there wasn't a choice left to make. Another elder moved forward. Ro, his bare chest crossed with old scars that told whole stories. You could have ridden past, he said. Most men would have. Why didn't you? Abel breathed once, slow, searching for words that wouldn't betray him. Years back, someone I loved was dying, he said quietly. And I wasn't there in time. I've carried that failure like a stone in my pocket ever since. So when I saw Nita bleeding out, that moment came back. The moment where doing nothing becomes a sin you can't wash off. So it was about your guilt, Rose said, not about mercy. Maybe it started that way, Abel answered. But the second I cleaned her wound, the second I put a needle through her flesh, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about her, about not letting another human being slip away when I could stop it. Sani, their father, spoke then, voice low and thoughtful. You speak of power, but you had none. One man, facing a choice that would summon 700 warriors to your door. Where is the power in that? Abel met his eyes. The power was in making the choice, in deciding her life mattered more than mine. A ripple moved through the warriors, whispers, nods, disbelieving exhalations. The elders drew together, speaking rapidly in Apache, too fast for Abel to follow. Finally, the elder woman lifted her hand, and the whole circle stilled. "Abel, hearken," she said. "You have spoken honestly. We acknowledge this, but truth does not wipe away the breach." She pointed toward Nita, pale, upright, alive because of him. "The law that guards our sacred vessels exists for reasons older than memory. They must remain untouched by the outside world. They are the voices of what came before. When you placed your hands upon her, you marked her. That scar you made will never fade. Every time she stands before us, that mark will remind our people that the sacred line was crossed." Nita stepped forward, ignoring the warrior who tried to restrain her. "That scar means I'm alive to speak at all," she said fiercely. "Without him, there would be no vessel left to protect." "Enough," Sani murmured, not harsh, but absolute. The elders began debating again, hands cutting the air, eyes sharp, tempers fraying. Abel could tell there was no agreement between them. Not yet. At last, they turned back toward him. "The council has reached its decision." The crowd held its breath. "Your crime stands. Your intentions are understood, but consequence remains. 2 paths lie before you." She pointed to the wooden post driven deep into the earth, ropes swaying in the desert wind. "The first is the old way. You are bound. Judgment is carried out by her father's hand. Swift. Final." Abel felt the dryness in his throat. "And the second?" Ro answered this time, voice gravel deep. "A path not taken in 3 generations. The path of blood brotherhood. The trial in which an outsider proves he is worthy to stand with us, not as guest, but as kin." "How?" Abel asked. "By fighting beside us when danger comes," Ro said. "By spilling blood for the same cause we spill ours." The elder woman lifted her chin towards the horizon. "The hunter you faced, Clyde Barker, will return. He never travels alone for long. Our scouts have spotted 12 riders coming fast from the east, mercenaries hungry for Apache scalps." Sani's voice hardened. "They mean to strike quickly and vanish before we can answer. They do not realize we are already here." Abel understood then, like a cold wind slicing through his ribs. "You used yourselves as bait." "We do not gamble with our children's lives," the elder woman said. "But we do not waste a chance when it comes. You stood with our daughters once. Now you will choose if you stand with them again. And if I refuse? Then you meet the traditional judgment, the post, the rope, the blade." She spread her hands to the warriors surrounding them. "But if you fight, and if you live, you will be offered something no outsider has been given in generations. A place among us. A family." Abel looked at Tala, at Nita, at the rising dust on the horizon. "When do they reach us?" he asked quietly. "Within the hour," Sani said. "Tell me where you need me." They placed Abel on the western rise alongside 50 warriors painted for battle. Tala checked his rifle with quick hands. "You shoot well enough?" she asked. "Well enough." "Well enough will get you buried. Aim for the horses. A man on foot is slow and stupid. Bullets are worth more than heroics." The riders appeared. 12 silhouettes, Clyde Barker at the front, wounded shoulder-bandaged but vengeance burning bright in his eyes. The trap sprung clean. Arrows darkened the sky. Horses screamed. Riders fell. Warriors closed like tightening rings. Abel fired, dropping a mercenary's mount. Tala's knife sang across the distance, burying itself in Barker's gun arm and sending his revolver skittering into the dust. Within minutes it was over. 12 men rode in. None escaped. 7 knelt bound in the sand, bleeding, defeated, bewildered. The Apache hadn't lost a single warrior. Sonny walked to Barker, who spat blood and hate. "They'll hang you for this," Barker snarled. Sonny looked down on him, eyes unmovable as bedrock. "We do not fear the judgment of men who cannot even protect their own." "Kill American folks and the cavalry's comin'," Sonny said coldly. 12 men ambushed a peaceful circle and paid for it in blood. Their bodies will send the message. Hunt our people. This is what follows. Abel stepped forward. "Hold on." Sonny turned. "You object?" "I object to making you into the monster they already claim you are." Abel looked to Clyde, then to the bound mercenaries. "If you kill them now, you confirm every lie they ever spread. But if you spare them, you prove something harder. That mercy ain't weakness. That justice doesn't always mean blood." The elders gathered. Roe's scar twitched as he argued hard for death. But Aya's eyes never left Abel. She listened in silence, long and steady. Then she finally spoke. "You fought beside us, Abel Harkin. Risked yourself for our daughters. But you ask us to spare men who'd show us none. I'm asking you to be better than them, to make law about protecting the living, not avenging the hurt." Sonny stared into Abel's face for a long time, then nodded once. "Take their weapons, strip them down to water, let 'em walk east, barefoot." He glanced at Clyde with a stare like sharpened stone. "And if they come back, mercy won't come twice." The warriors obeyed, dragging the cursing mercenaries upright. As Dusty Maris stumbled past, he snarled, "You made a mistake, rancher. You picked the wrong side." Abel's reply came quiet and sure. "No, I finally picked right." The men vanished into the desert, stumbling under a sky with no shade. Sonny rested a hand on Abel's shoulder. "You've passed the first trial, but now comes the second. The one that defines who you are." As the midday sun bore down, Abel stood again before the circle. But the weight on his shoulders had changed. It wasn't judgment anymore. It felt like belonging. Aya stepped forward, her voice clear, cutting through the stillness. "Abel Harkin, you rode into fire for us. You chose mercy when vengeance would have been easy. You used your hands to heal sacred life, not defile it. The council has decided." Abel's heart pounded, but his face remained still. "You cannot undo the past," she continued, "but law was made to protect the living, not to punish those who preserve them." She gestured toward Nita, her strength returned, standing tall beside Tala. "She breathes today because you risked everything. That choice outweighs the law you broke." Sonny stepped beside Aha now. "There's an old right," he said. "Rarely spoken, but never forgotten. We can name you brother of the blood, not by birth, but by the bond forged when you chose our daughter's life over your own." Abel blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means there will always be a place for you at our fire," Sonny said. "It means if you call, our warriors will ride. It means you are no longer outsider, but kin." Sonny's voice turned grave. "But you will carry our weight, too. Learn our ways, respect our laws, be the bridge when trouble brews between worlds." "And if I accept?" Abel asked. "Then you stop being the man who broke our code. You become the man who saved a daughter and earned his place with courage and mercy." Aha's eyes shone. "You become proof that strangers can become family." Abel looked around. 700 warriors, young men, elder women, all watching him. Then his gaze found Tala and Nita, side by side like they were in the desert. He remembered how he couldn't ride past them. "I accept," he said. A wave rose, not cheer, but approval, recognition. Sonny clasped Abel's forearm like a brother, and one by one, the warriors did the same. Nita came last, on her feet, strong, alive. She took his hand and spoke so all could hear. "You gave me life when death came close. I'll carry your mark to remind me that some fences are meant to protect, not imprison, and that sometimes the boldest act is reaching for a stranger." Tala stood beside her, then gave Abel a wry grin. "You're stubborn as a mule, Abel Harkin, but that stubbornness saved my sister. For that, you have my thanks, and my blade." The circle broke apart as the heat of afternoon settled in. Horses were saddled, banners lowered. But it wasn't retreat. It was resolution. The daughters were safe. Justice had been done, not with death, but with purpose. As the last riders faded beyond the ridge, Sani lingered beside Abel. "That silence you once wanted on this land," he said. "It's gone." "I figured," Abel replied. "But different doesn't mean worse." "No," Sani nodded. "Not always." He laid a hand on Abel's shoulder. "You'll always be welcome in our lands, but I reckon you'll stay here. This land you bled for, it's your home." "Yeah," Abel said softly. "It is." "Then build it right. Strong walls, open doors, a place where the lost know they'll be found." He gripped Abel's arm once more. "That's what a blood brother does. He becomes the bridge, the proof that mercy ain't weakness." Sani mounted up and joined Tala and Nita waiting on the ridge. Abel stood alone by his ranch. The broken window still needed fixing. The fence wanted mending. But nothing looked the same. He had found 2 women dying in the dust. He had chosen to help. That choice brought warriors, judgment, and something else. Family. Meaning. A reason. He picked up his hammer and walked toward the fence. Same work, different man. A rancher no longer alone. A bridge between worlds. A man who chose life over law. And as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over land that had tasted both justice and mercy, Abel Harkin worked in silence. Some debts are paid in coin, others in who you become when you finally stop running. He had made his choice, and 700 warriors had come not to destroy him, but to witness him become one of their own.